We are back with a very special session here on the AWS Launchpad. We are joined by some very amazing guests from Activision. We're going to be talking a little bit about the tech behind one of my favorite games, Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Let's roll the trailer.
Chemical weapons have fallen into terrorist hands.
We're in for a hell of a fight.
The war begins now.
What's the plan? Shock and all. Bravo 6, going dark.
Pre-order Call of Duty Modern Warfare.
Awesome, so like I said, joined by some very amazing guests. Let's go down the line and introduce ourselves. First, Nick Walsh, Technical Evangelist at Amazon Web Services.
Gina Hope, I'm Senior Director of Consumer Technology. I lead the team that builds a lot of the experiences around our games, so we are not game developers. We build the things on the web, mobile, voice skill, and some things that power some of the messaging in the game.
I'm Mike Blesky, Senior Manager of Consumer Technology. I run the DevOps group and do all the infrastructure and AWS parts of all of our systems.
Diego Toledo, Associate Software Architect. I work for Gina.
Hi again, my name is Kunal Batra. I'm a Senior Technical Evangelist here at AWS.
Awesome, and let's be a little loud here. I know there's a lot of energy going on, there's a lot of stuff around us, but thank you for taking the time to come out here. So like we mentioned, talking Call of Duty Modern Warfare and some of the tech behind that. So something that is a bit newer in Modern Warfare are these in-game communications and experiences that players have that are customized and personalized with the power of machine learning. Can we talk about some of the examples of those dynamic communications?
Sure, so this started for us with Call of Duty Black Ops 4. We moved away from our traditional approach to messaging in the game, which was rules-based, to machine learning to allow us to better customize and choose which messages a player sees based on what they're doing in the game and feedback directly from them.
So that's really awesome, yeah.
Oh yeah, so what are the interfaces for the customization, right? Obviously you have in-game. What's the out-of-game experiences as well?
Sure, this is used in-game, but we also do it in email, we'll do it on our website, we'll do it in the mobile companion app, through push notifications, really any digital channel.
Awesome.
And the beauty of moving from a rules-based system, which is done entirely manually, you try to infer what players may want at certain scenarios and then define and bucket them. The power of machine learning is you can actually just take all of that historical data from your users and just automatically have the algorithm figure out what will be most likely for them to enjoy. So a really exciting move on that front. But like we just mentioned, there are lots of interfaces to work with these personalized experiences. Can we go into the details about a few of them? Because I know there's some really exciting ones, like the Alexa skill.
Do you want to take that one, Diego?
You take it.
Sure, so with the Alexa skill, that one we took a different approach with. So this became our Call of Duty coach, if you will. So when you played a match in Call of Duty, a few seconds later, we would get the results of that, and we would compare you to top players with your same play style on that map or mode, and then give you some recommendations on how you did, like where you did well in the game, where there's room for improvement, and then some suggestions on a new loadout you might want to try.
So I think about this, and a vocal coach from Alexa telling me where I missed all my shots is great. But sometimes I'm looking to see a little bit more visual data, right? Maybe in a heat map or a graph. On the visual end, are there any other ways users can see their data there?
The mobile app. You can see the mobile app. All this data is available on the mobile app. And also in the mobile app, you can have some recommendations that you would be getting from the Alexa skill. It's also available there.
Yeah, so users can sign in, and if it's connected to their account on whatever system or console they're using, that data is propagated into their account, and they can see like heat maps of where they did well, where they had low accuracy, so on and so forth?
Yep.
Wonderful. And so when we think about like personalizations, we have the web experience, we have the Alexa skill, but even in game, we have ways that we want to change and modify the player experience to be more dynamic. What ways do we pop up text or notifications or alerts that are personalized towards players?
So we have this problem that we have a lot of content for the user to explore, and we have a lot of ways to communicate with the user. So that's when the machine learning comes in. Well, we are trying to personalize to have everybody has the best Call of Duty journey as he can.
Yeah, and that word journey is a really good example because some players love playing, the campaign. Others may be exclusively multiplayer, brag stars or whatever you want to call them. But ultimately, each player enters with their own personal preferences, and instead of bucketing these players with a rules-based system, you can automatically have that sort of ascertained through machine learning.
Yeah, we can achieve truly personalization, like one-on-one personalization. If you're like a very unique player and there's nobody like you, we're going to create a strategy, like a content strategy just for you.
Wonderful. Can we actually talk about a little bit of how this works under the hood? Because this all sounds really exciting to me. And I know that a lot of these systems work in real time, having played the game, right? When you perform an action, then this pipeline and this system you've developed will then serve a custom personalization or a custom message. What type of tech powers this personalization pipeline?
So I'll take that one.
Yeah.
So there are hundreds of thousands of events coming through our systems every single second. So the power of AWS allows us to scale and manage that efficiently. It also gives us an opportunity with the building blocks that they provide to build out a structured pipeline in order for developers to manage and maintain their own applications as well. In terms of the math and science, we utilize a Neptune graph database in order to store what states individual gamers are in order to give that one-to-one personalized experience.
Yeah, Neptune, again, Amazon Neptune, a managed graph database, super helpful for managing these complex relationships between entities and the actions that are taken between them. So in Call of Duty, good examples that I could think of would be different players, different game modes they play, how many times they failed on a certain mission of the campaign, for example. These are all things you can use to, again, query in a graph format with Neptune and just get data and queries that would otherwise be very difficult in a more traditional database format.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, because the graph is very visual, so I can sit with very non-technical people and you can start seeing patterns right away in front of them, and we can start discuss like optimal paths, alternatives to the strategy that we currently have.
Yeah, so when we're thinking about the graph database, that's really awesome, but we also have to move data along in our system in an efficient and performant way. What tools do you use to build that data pipeline outside of Neptune where you're doing your querying?
So we use several different techniques. So we have applications that actually read out of our data streams, and they fire into NoSQL databases, large NoSQL database, as well as using SQS in order to trigger the actual calculation of what content, matching their content to their state. We also use Kinesis Analytics in order to sort of mesh the attribution, like whether people click or view an actual message. We can actually attribute that and connect it together with Kinesis Analytics.
Yeah, I just had a question. What type of machine learning do you use to personalize this, right? Any specific algorithms that you guys focus on?
Yeah, so you run a reinforcement learning algorithm, and we do Monte Carlo research. We do use reinforcement learning because we want to explore alternative paths. We don't want to only get stuck on what it worked on the past.
Got it.
We want to explore different alternatives and try to find different ways to talk to the user.
Got it. And just for our audience home at Twitch, reinforcement learning is essentially learning through the consequences of your actions, where you optimize with the reward function. So I'm guessing in this case, you have that world, you have that game, which is that world. Your agent is the player, and
the agent is us trying to improve the player experience.
The player's experience.
Yes.
Got it. So in this case, you're optimizing for that engagement, right?
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's our signal. Whenever the player engagement increases, the user is getting to a better path compared to other users. We know that this is working, so everybody's learning from everybody.
Perfect. Sounds good. And so, what are your learnings throughout this, right? So you've actually seen this. I took a sneak peek at some of your slides in your session. I know you guys have some learnings from it. Any learnings that you can talk about over here?
Sure. In the past, particularly with the rules, we had people go with their gut, right? Like if you were creating messages about zombies, we should only show those to people that played an hour of zombies. And everyone would nod and be like, oh yeah, that's totally what we should do. But the reality is, showing those messages of all the different game modes to the majority of the players was way more effective, right? They may have a favorite part of the game that they play, but it turns out they were actually open to hearing about other parts of the game and then eventually exploring other parts of the game. And that is what, for us, drove hours played. So we saw a positive impact on hours played, and not from getting them to play more of what they already liked, but moving into new parts of the game.
Got it. And then I guess with that personalization, this is going to be across many different interfaces, right? So we spoke about the Alexa skill, we spoke about email, in-game. What is the difference between each of those interfaces, right? Do you optimize for certain things with different interfaces?
Absolutely. Within game, there are limitations, right? This requires a partnership between us and the game studios to build out the UI. With the website, there are a lot of tools out there for A/B testing and optimization, so some things can go a bit more rapidly in that space. And then the different channels also, the type of content, the amount of content, so if it's a push notification, we're going to keep it small versus
sense.
an email where we might put more information in there.
One thing that I noticed that really jumped out to me was that these systems don't exist completely in parallel or independent of one another. And what I mean by this is that your experience in one and the actions you take in one part of the pipeline, like in the Alexa skill or on the website, will actually help to drive the personalizations in another part of your application, which again just creates a more end-to-end experience for the customer. How hard was it to implement something like that? Because it sounds really like intuitive to think about, like, yeah, of course we'd do that. But I'd imagine that journey, yeah, you see, he's already laughing. What does that journey look like to try and unify those different data silos?
That's an interesting problem to solve because the amount of data is so massive, and you kind of have to pick and choose on what data you get from which channel and what impacts other areas. And so the power of AWS allows us to really combine all that data into one place, be able to apply our machine learning and get out our key.
Wonderful, and I think we touched on it further down there, but you had a breakout session here at reInvent, is that correct?
That's correct.
And I know those videos will be available in just a little bit, but what did you talk about in that breakout session here at reInvent?
We went into a deeper dive into kind of how we did this personalization inside of the game with our messaging. Diego spent a lot of time talking about the math and the approach behind that, and then Mike really drilled into what that infrastructure and the system design looked like.
Great, and I know those videos are going to be available in just about 24 or 48 hours after they happen, so if you're interested in seeing a deeper dive on that, definitely look for the YouTube playlist with that topic. So, moving forward a little bit, we mentioned and hinted before that there are lots of different experiences, Alexa, web, in-game, but one of them that I think we've left out has been the companion app. So can we tell everyone at home a little bit about the companion app and how that plays into the experience of Call of Duty?
Sure, the companion app is a companion experience to Call of Duty, so if you're an active player, this is something that you can download, install on your phone, and it allows you to interact with the game on the go, right? Not everybody's lucky enough to have a console sitting on their desk at work, so this gives them something to do when they leave home for the day. Within the app, there are general news, there's video, there's a lot of social pieces where you can connect with friends. There's competitions in there, daily rewards, but there's also an intel section, and that's where really the machine learning comes in, where we're adding tips, we're doing that match analysis, and then the heat maps.
Great, I mean, we talk a lot at AWS about using the right tool for the right job, right? It's age-old wisdom that applies in many different scenarios, but I think one of the best examples of this is taking the same data or even similar types of personalizations and serving them in drastically different ways depending on the medium. So for example, I would not want a heat map read out to me in some way, shape, or form over Alexa, right? Just like reading me the points or like those coordinates would mean nothing verbally, but visually serving those is really important. And the companion app now serves as sort of this great middle ground where you can have visual, you can have audio, but you also take it on the go. People don't think about mobility all the time with respect to some of these systems. Not everyone can be at their laptop or desktop when they want to be able to get these insights.
Yeah, it's a second screen experience.
Yeah, a complete experience. I mean, I imagine even if I can't access the heat map in the game, but I'm sitting back on my couch playing, I can just pull out my phone and actually look at the heat map from the last game. And that's a really convenient experience for me as a player. I don't want to have to have my laptop on one knee as I'm balancing my controller on the other, right?
Yep.
So this is really exciting. If folks want to look into the companion app or download it, where can they find that?
It is available in the App Store for both Android and iOS.
Wonderful. I think we have some links to that as well, but you could also search that in the App Store. We've got a little bit of time left in the session. Again, we're doing this live, so Twitch, if you have any questions, feel free to get those in the chat. Going a little bit broader here, what were some of your favorite parts of implementing these personalizations in the game, or are there anything that forward-looking that really excites you about being able to offer personalized experiences for players? And you don't have to promise anything, obviously. This is maybe a more personal question, but what excites you about personalization and in-game experiences?
Just the learnings, things that we thought we knew all along, and we started to see that all those different players that people didn't know there were those type of players, and and see what the AI was doing to those players did not make sense, but it was improving, and we had to spend a lot of time trying to let the AI continue to do that because it's working, but you have to understand why is this working.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, you hit the nail on the head before when you moving from a policy to machine learning is very valuable because when we analyze data sets like this, we come in with some sort of bias. Like we assume players assume certain roles, but by bucketing people into those predetermined sort of groups, it actually loses some of the granularity and nuance, and we may completely glance over certain properties or categories that we didn't even think of. And so machine learning to be able to ascertain these groups helps us to get past that and deliver an experience we may not have even thought about for a certain player.
Yeah, and this drives to like better messaging the system too.
Yeah.
Have you tried any other types of algorithms? So I know we talked about reinforcement learning.
Yes.
And I'm guessing this is because the nature of the game is non-deterministic.
Yep.
But did you try supervised learning with
Yes.
any data sets as well? And can you tell me the difference between both and the improvements? So
So supervised learning, it worked really well. We found like a lot of labels. The one reason why it did not work for us is because we have a lot of seasonal content. So this message comes live now, and it's going to be offline tonight. So by the time we have labels, if this thing is working or not, we're going to train a model. We're just going to have like 1 hour to exploit this learner. So reinforcement learning, by default, explore all those like new doors and automatically close the bad ones and just focus on the good ones.
Got it. Awesome.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, it's very exciting stuff, obviously. So, obviously, you've probably been swamped with the launch of such an amazing game and the immense popularity it's had. Is there anything that you're looking toward going forward that you may be exploring? It could be personalization oriented, any initiatives for your data pipeline, anything on the roadmap that you think looks really interesting and maybe it translates directly right now to player experience, or maybe it's to set up some sort of experience down the line. Anything in that sort of realm that you think it would be nice to share with some of the developers that are interested?
I think one of the things you mentioned earlier, right? It's all those digital channels and our in-game channel. And for us in 2020, it's continuing to build those connections, right? To expand the model, not just to choose the message, but also choose the right channel and the right message in that channel. So some people, an in-game message might be the right choice. Another person, and they want to hear from us in email. Someone else wants a text message. But really making sure, again, for us, everything's motivated by how we can be player first. So figuring out where players want to hear from us and at what time and in what way is really what is on our roadmap for 2020.
Yeah, I mean, this is, again, the sentiment is very familiar to the customer obsession at Amazon and AWS.
I just have,
go ahead.
I have one thing. I want to make a confession. I'm not a gamer, and I know this is on Twitch, but if there's anyone else who wants to get into gaming, like I do, what's the best way to get started with Call of Duty and
Call of Duty. You get a game and get the Call of Duty coach to help you get better.
There's a Call of Duty coach?
There's a Call of Duty coach.
That's the Alexa skill. It's also in the companion app.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, that's great.
Mike wasn't a believer. Didn't want to listen to the recommendations, and then he actually tried the loadout recommendations, and it actually improved his game.
It actually did.
That's awesome.
I was really impressed with the value that it really gained me in terms of being a Call of Duty player. I've been playing Call of Duty for, I am a gamer. I've been playing almost every Call of Duty out there. And, the first time I used the Alexa skill to see how I was doing, it recommended a weapon that I never even like to use. And I was like, okay, Diego, I'm going to try it. Tried it, and I never looked back. It just, my KD went way up, and made me a believer.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because a lot of the people just pick some early choices, like I'm going to play with those 2 weapons or 3 weapons, and just try to get better and better and better with the sport choice that they did 2 months or 6 months ago, and it was never the optimum choice for them. So the AI can explore, the coach can explore all those possible combinations and match your play style, so he did all this work for you already.
All right, that's good feedback. Get the coach.
Yeah, yes. Definitely. And if you again, talking to being able to expand this game to many different players, I've heard a little bit about Call of Duty Mobile. We've got a few moments left. You want to talk a little bit about that, expanding Call of Duty to the mobile scene?
Sure. We launched our Call of Duty mobile game a couple months ago. Mm-hmm. It's been a huge hit and very popular right now. We are working with that team a little bit on some of their messaging as well. So we're not as involved in the personalization on that part, but we are working with them to connect that game to the rest of the COD ecosystem.
Wonderful. Well, lots of exciting things going on over at Activision in the entire Call of Duty ecosystem. But I think we're running up against the clock here. So Diego, Gina, Mike, thank you for taking the time to come out. I know everyone in chat very much appreciates it. And we're very thankful that you joined us for this session on Launchpad. Stick around. We'll be back with some more content very shortly.